In today's interview, we take a look at the world of marketing and branding in esports. Craig Winfield, our guest today, started life as a professional rugby league player for rugby league powerhouse Hull FC, based in the United Kingdom. After deciding to hang up the boots, Craig began a career in the world of event management in Greece. He has since worked in sales and advertising for companies such as Coca-Cola and Johnston Press. This is where Craig developed a love for competition-based events. With a passion for competitive FIFA and competitions, Craig realized his skill set and interests aligned with esports. Today, Craig is the partnerships manager for SAF GG and community manager at First 11. SAF has more than 460,000 followers and is a collective of content creators and has its own esports team with top players in its stables. First 11 is an entertainment organization aiming to bring together creators, athletes, and gamers with an interactive online platform. Craig, an impressive skill set and career so far across rugby and esports. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, it's great to be here, guys. Not so much rugby, but I'll take the esports accolade with a bit more confidence on that one. How are you guys doing?
Before I have to ask, because as an Australian who's born in Queensland, it's fair to say my relationship with rugby league is borderlines unhealthy.
Yeah.
What was it like playing rugby league in the 90s and 2000s?
It was great. Hull is a big rugby city, probably bigger than football, actually. And it's split by a river. There's basically two teams. And depending on what side of the river you was born on, that is pretty much the team that you support. So I was quite lucky in the sense that I actually managed to play for the team that I supported. So, it was great. I remember signing on the pitch at the old stadium, and I didn't quite make it, but still proud of the achievements and the competitive side of it was great. I think I learned some good skills early on in my career, really. I
think that's kind of where this all started for Luke and I. Same story for us. I think in back in our backgrounds, which is we didn't quite make it, but we learned a lot. Who was kind of the scariest people you ever had to tackle?
I had probably the worst tackle was actually from an Australian. So you can give yourselves a pat on the back. It is a guy called Dean Hanger. He played for Halifax, and I remember I came on as a substitute for the under-21s team, and I took the ball from dummy half. I was not too far away from the touchline, but I actually ended up in kind of in the seats, in about the third row of the seat, and that was kind of my introduction to kind of second grade rugby league. I guess it was a bit of a rude awakening.
That's amazing. So, were you a gamer growing up?
Yes, certainly. So, I'm going to be giving my age away a little bit here, but I started gaming right from the off, really, with things like Pong. I had a Commodore 64 and then an Amiga, which was awesome for sensible soccer. That was probably my first kind of real football game that I really got into, and then followed the consoles right through. Mega Drive was big, and N64. So it's always something that's been there in my life from being quite an early age. So there's quite a few songs and memories that bring me back to the time that I was playing a certain game. So I think, to be honest, it's probably the one constant in my life. It's always been there.
And where did your kind of esports journey really begin? We're going to get into a little bit more about your professional background, corporate professional background, but where did your how did you get drawn into esports, or when did you really start to learn about it?
Yeah, so about 2.5 years ago, it's kind of a hobby that got a little bit out of control in a sense. I actually joined SAF as a member, as a fan, I guess. I've been watching what these guys are doing for a while, and quite admittedly, I'm not the best FIFA player in the world. And I actually joined just to get some tips to get better at the game, and really sort of loved what the guys are doing. and joined their premium Discord, which is kind of a really cool trading platform that allows people to get tips from pro players and helps them to make coins. And I pretty much progressed from kind of being a member to helping the team out. And then I got speaking to the founder, Callum. And we sort of had a bit of a chat about my skill set and the stuff that I'd done previously. And then that, somehow ended up me kind of leading up SAF in terms of the marketing and advertising and looking for brand partnerships and sponsors. So it's been a crazy journey, really, probably quite an unusual one. I think a lot of esports, people that work within esports generally come from a slightly different background, or they've been very good gamers and they maybe found a business from prize money. So it's been a bit of a crazy journey, really. The guy who was fan turned into kind of forging a little bit of a career from it.
Nice. I want to dive into one topic that that you kind of explain in your journey with SAF, is that you mentioned that you joined as a just wanted to get some tips, and you ended up leading the marketing strategy for SAF. I want to maybe for the audience that would want to understand how this kind of things can happen in the esports industry. What does this journey look like in terms of maybe not like the detailed step, but the gradual step from the moment where you join to the moment where you actually end up leading the marketing strategy for them?
Yeah, sure. I think a lot of the effort and the time that I've put in and the motivation kind of comes from being a fan. So I was kind of leading the Discord up until about 18 months ago, and that was mainly to bring in new members. I was kind of working on the marketing side there, a lot on social media, sort of converting people that were interested in joining and having discussions with them. We did a really good job. We've now got the largest Discord in the world. That's kind of the largest paid FIFA Discord. So I guess really it was a case of taking quite small steps, learning what our audience likes, the type of content that we put out, but also working quite closely with different parts of the team. So obviously when I joined SAF, I wasn't a streamer, I wasn't a professional esports player, and I've not really worked within esports as a niche, I guess. So I guess what I did really is kind of take a look at my skill set and where that could be best applied. And also kind of looked at, similar scenarios. So in a sales position or a marketing position, if I've been selling soft drinks or if I've been selling print advertising, how does that skill set and how does that knowledge transpire into esports? So by kind of using some of the knowledge that I already had, and also probably making some mistakes along the way and kind of learning along the way as well, that's kind of led me to a stage now where I've got a really good understanding of our organization, the wider ecosystem. I've still got stuff to learn. There's probably people watching this out who have a lot more experience and knowledge than myself, but I've really had to take a lot of my own spare time to really look at what other brands are doing, what orgs are doing, which types of brands are coming into this space, where there might be potential for brands that are not coming into this space. So it's been almost a self-led learning journey, but it's been underpinned by the fact that I love the brand, I love the game, and I work with a really cool set of guys. So I think anybody who's trying to maybe take that route, I think it's really important to make sure that you're doing it with something that interests you, because if it interests you and you're passionate about it, you'll be more consistent, you'll learn more, you'll pick up more, and you'll also be more motivated to go out and kind of self-teach yourself a little bit as well.
That's very insightful. I think one of the things that you mentioned and that kind of scared us at the beginning when we started the Valor Esports journey is that we are not professional gamers, and we didn't know I mean, we knew some things about gaming, but the only exposition we had to esport was what's exposed, so the streaming and also the professional gamers. And I think a lot of either players or young students that wants to get involved in esport, they might not realize that behind the players there are like a big ecosystem and a big industry that's running. And depending, even if you're studying or you want to work in another field, there is still a lot of opportunities within the industry.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, it's probably similar to professional sports in many ways, where everybody growing up in the playground wants to be a football player or a rugby player or a basketball player. That is kind of the headline. That's the part that everybody sees and probably emulates to. But that is a very, very small percentage of that ecosystem. And if you, in my opinion, if you're passionate about, you know, you would love to be that person who is in that 1%, that passion by not being able to be there can drive you into that ecosystem and still give you, you know, a great career and a lot of enjoyment from your job. You know, I mean, if you think 20 years ago when I was playing GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64, did I ever think that I'd be, you know, talking about FIFA all day? Probably not. It's a dream come true, really. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities out there, and I think you need to look past, you know, the fact that you don't have to be awesome at the game. You don't have to be a content creator. You can build things kind of organically as a brand if you want to build up your own brand, but you can also, you know, work within those support functions and be successful at it.
Yeah, thank you. And just before we jump into another topic, I have one thing that I'm really curious about, because you mentioned that you joined SAF as you joined the Discord, and after you worked like you work as helping them with the branding because of your skills. How does that process look like? How did you engage with the SAF moderator or owner at the time, and how did you volunteer first, and how does that process look like for someone who wants to get involved, like so we can get from your experience?
Yeah, I think it's if you're going to be part of a community, you know, we have a lot of guys in our community that kind of probably watch from a distance a little bit. They still interact with us, you know, they still tick over our stream views and our analytics, but they might not be the most vocal people within our community. Now, that's not to say these guys might not have some excellent skill sets, but if they want to be involved with an organization and an esports organization and come from probably where I did, I think it's really important to make sure that you are leading from the front almost in terms of the interactions that you're having with the rest of the community. Now, there can be quite a bit of toxicity on social media and within certain games. You know, it's important to stay clear from those types of discussions, and just be professional, helpful, fun. And you know, I can't think in my example, you know, the guys sort of approached me and said, look, we like the way that you come across. We've seen you helping other members. Would you like to join our team? And I joined as a FIFA trader. I just taught people how to make FIFA coins in a Discord. And then from that, you know, I started then to look at the skills I had and the experience and kind of started to question, hey guys, you know, you've got this really cool platform with all of these followers. What are you doing to tell brands about this? And what sponsors do you have? So I think because of my background a little bit, my brain started ticking a little bit. And I thought, do you know what? I could probably help these guys out and it would be really cool. And if I'm completely honest, at the start, I maybe didn't even think that there could be a career in it. I just did it because it was cool and because I really, you know, I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I think the underlying thing is, you know, if you do something that you love and you're passionate about it and you express that within that community, it makes the discussions much easier when you maybe go to see the guy who started the brand, the founder, or one of the managers, and just say, hey, look, this is me. You've probably seen me. What can I do to work with you guys and help you out?
Yeah, and I think that's it's really interesting. It's at the age that esports is still at, even though it's not completely new, it still requires that interconnection between people to keep developing. It's not, you know, I'd say nearly 99% of the people we've spoken to so far have alluded to the fact that they've built their opportunities through, lack of a better word, networking, or talking to people and actually building a relationship with the people that they're involved with. And I think that's a huge part of it, is how can you first, and you're lucky because you actually really loved what you were doing. So it was really easy to actually build that connection. And I think if you follow that advice, it should be quite simple. It's, are you passionate about it? Talk to people about it and things will start to happen, which is really cool. I wanted to ask, for anyone who might not be completely across it, what is SAF GG, and is it similar to other esports brands, or is it unique in its own way?
I would say that we are quite unique. From the outside in, we have an esports team, we have a content creation team, we have social media, we have a Discord. So I think for many people that would come across SAF externally and see us as a brand, they would probably say, oh yeah, okay, we see what these guys do. They're a FIFA esports brand and they're into gaming and entertainment. Quite interestingly, we've kind of taken a different route. Our founder, Callum, he used to leave really long-winded reviews on a Facebook group, which was another Facebook FIFA group. And, people used to say to him, hey, mate, you need to really get out more. And, do you have a girlfriend? It was almost kind of at the stage where they're like, look, mate, these reviews are taking up my feed. So he decided to go off and set his own group up. He decided that these people weren't serious enough about FIFA and set up his own group. And basically that Facebook group exploded to about 40,000 people very quickly. And from there, that's where we put the Discord, which is a paid service. So it was kind of, a freemium service where we had loads of advice on the Facebook group. But if you wanted the extra step and to speak to kind of pro players, people that are really good at the game, we charged a monthly fee. And from that allowed us then to build and sign an esports team. And that is completely community funded. So, what's really cool is that we can say to our guys in our Discord, hey guys, we've just got a guy who's qualified in the Premier League. You paid for that. And the engagement and the feeling within the community is awesome. I think that's really unique to what we do. And again, with the content creation team, we started with guys that we saw potential in. They didn't have hundreds of thousands of followers or subscribers. One guy had about 40 followers on Twitter when we found him, and they had about 5 people in his streams. And we randomly managed to come across this guy on Twitch. We thought, hey, this guy's really good. We took him on board. We boosted his social media, and about 3 months ago, he was actually on a TV program in the UK, which was kind of a gamer's challenge. We built that guy up to kind of that level. So we are very different. We approach things from a grassroots level. We help new people get into the esports scene. And yeah, we are community funded, pretty much community funded, which is quite unique.
Yeah, and I'm hearing a pretty consistent message from yourself, Craig, and also from the research that we did before talking to you, that it sounds like SAF has a really healthy community. And I wanted to ask you, why is community so important to SAF and the development of a brand?
Yeah, I mean, it's important, first of all, to everybody has to start from somewhere, and if you engage with your community properly, that's the way that it's going to grow. People are going to share your content, they're going to tell their friends, and in the early stages it's really important to build that community feeling. Now, the way that we grew in the very early days is that we actually had volunteers. So similar to myself in the Discord a few years ago, if we saw a guy that was very active and he was helping other people, we actually gave that guy a social media account. It could be Saf James or Saf John. And we said to that guy, okay, here's your social media account. When we post something on our socials, you almost become a moderator and a part of the team. So right now today we have, it's probably over 60 people that have SAF in front of their name with branded banners and profile pictures. And I think that gives us a different way to interact with our fans, because essentially everybody buys into the brand that follows us, but they feel like they're being almost touched and affected and interacted with by part of the team. Where I often see, certain brands or certain organizations, they put content out and the comments are just really people answering. There's not really any interaction from that social media account or other parts of the team. So how that ties into kind of, if you're moving into the latter stages where you want to speak to brands and organizations about sponsorship and brand activations, that just massively helps analytics. So when we put a tweet out and we ask our community a question, or we do a giveaway for a brand, or we provide we share some content, they're massively engaged because, one, they trust us, they like us, they've built up what they feel is a personal connection with us. But then also we have our guys in there interacting too and saying, what do you think to this FIFA player? Oh yeah, this guy's great. And then one of our guys might come in and say, actually, I've been using him, you need to get this guy. And it becomes a very organic system where everybody is interacting with each other without toxicity. And I think that's really important because, to get brands to buy into your organization, what really matters is the analytics and the numbers that come out of the other side. And if you've built that community in that way, your analytics will head in the right direction and grow. And that is what will be able to engage brands into your organization.
It's it's such an incredible strategy. I think you hear about it. I mean, at uni, you hear about, they talk about, oh, you got to build a community, but you rarely actually see it at a really successful level across multiple industries. And esports, we've talked about it earlier as well with the toxicity that is involved. I could see it being quite easy early on for it to get, mutate a little bit in a negative way. And it sounds like you guys have managed that really well. Is there any strategies that you've come across from your background in corporate, a bit more corporate event management, that haven't quite worked or you don't think will work in esports?
That's a good question. I personally, I think I'm a big believer that esports, the wider esports ecosystem is doing great things. And something that I read on social media recently is that every esports fan is a gamer, but every gamer is not an esports fan. So sometimes what I see is maybe organizations, gaming or esports organizations, really trying to push home the professional esports message. We're awesome at the game, come and follow us. And I think that's great. If you've got these guys that are actually amazing at the game, you're probably going to have a lot of money already because these guys aren't cheap. But I think the advice to those guys that are really pushing the competitive side of esports is to make sure that you build that community behind you, because there is still a big market of people that aren't solely interested in esports but are still gamers. They probably still play the same game as you guys. And if you interact with those guys, that will only grow your brand and even convert some more casual gamers into esports. I think there's a few examples that I've seen where it feels a bit heavy, a little bit competitive, which is great. But I think it's also important to have that underlying entertainment, sort of softer side to a brand as well.
Cool. I want to jump to one topic that really interests me, and is part of what you said around that you're trying to pick the player that are not too big and then help them grow.
That's right.
And I wonder, what is a success path that you see for a player, like from the moment when you take him to like as a not a beginner, but a beginner in the professional scene, I would say, to the moment. What is kind of your goal for the players? Do you have the goal to be managing him forever, or just bringing him to a certain level and then getting him into another team? Do you have this kind of strategy already, or is just something that you manage on a case by case?
Yeah, I think we manage it. Our strategy right from the beginning has been to try to find players that have potential, and with coaching and with advice, they can go further in the game and elevate their position. Which, if you do it right and they start to win major tournaments, it elevates the brand alongside them too. We did go after that strategy in the first year in esports, and we did okay. We got some guys through to some tournaments. We had a guy called Kyle Hammond that got through to the final of the Premier League representing Chelsea, which was really cool. But what we also realised is that we lacked experience. And this is, I guess, where it's probably similar to sporting teams, where, it's absolutely fantastic to have a great academy setup and an under-21 setup where you've got a lot of young guys that have got massive potential. These guys don't always have the most natural leadership abilities. So this year we actually implemented 2 guys who are seasoned pros. They've been around on the scene a lot longer. Probably going to be their last 1 or 2 years in esports, and eventually will probably move into coaching for us as well. So I think it's really important to get a bit of a mix, really. That is our strategy. Is we've got these guys that are very experienced in the scene. They've grown their social channels and their individual followings. They've played for big teams. And these guys can really pass down their knowledge and experience to the younger guys in a lot of areas. But yeah, if again, like real world sports, our guys are under contract. If they reach the point where we need to talk about transfer fees, then yeah, it could be a game changer for brands. If you just all of a sudden get a guy who comes from nowhere, and one of the multi-million-pound organizations wants to sign this guy, that could probably, the money that would put into the organization would probably allow us to get 10 more academy players. So it's, we want our guys to stay with us as long as possible. The brand has to grow at the same rate as these guys, for that to be possible at the same time.
Really cool. And this is something that we're also really passionate about helping the not beginner, but beginner in this ecosystem, in the professional scene or the competitive scene. And one question that I have is, you have helped different players doing that step. Did you see any common pattern in things that those players that had to learn, or that you feel that your organization was really helpful for them, that to educate them around things that they wouldn't be able to achieve by themselves?
Yeah, certainly. I think that there's probably a few areas, really. I think one similarity is that we often see that pro esports players are very, very good at the game. These guys are very strict. Their routine is good. Their drive and hunger to get better is good. But as I've mentioned earlier, there is a big market in increasing your following and your own personal brand within an organization. So one of the things that we do for the guys that are interested is we hook them up with our content creation team, and we allow them to maybe co-stream alongside the guys initially. We give them lots of tips and advice on how to make fun and interesting streams, how to speak confidently into the microphone, and then also all of the technical stuff. These guys need to set stream overlays, they need to set bots in their chats. So we give them all of that knowledge, and that allows these guys then, when they start playing well in tournaments, to go and talk to people about it within their streams, and they then create their own fan base. So that's one of the things that we do quite a lot. And the other major thing is they need game time against other very good players to progress. If these guys are just playing in Division 1 in foot rivals, which is the whole population of FIFA players, they might only get 1 in 10 games, which actually challenges them. So we put these guys into kind of a pool that we've created where there's lots of pros from different teams at different levels. And we know that, if we have a guy that's kind of here and he needs to get here, he's going to get there by playing these guys. So that's something that we do in their development to make them better at the game. But we also put a lot of time and effort into, if they want to be a streamer and a content creator, we help them along the way with that as well.
Great, and that's really cool that you have this pool of professional player helping as well, because it's true that at a certain level, you might not find like the pass to start playing at the other level because all the other players are either under contract or you don't have access to those players.
Yeah, so I think one thing that is great about the professional FIFA scene is that the majority of teams and players know that they need to play each other to progress, and they are quite, it's a good community. It's not a community I'm massively involved with because I don't really fancy getting beat 20-0 at half time by these guys. But, our esports coach, he speaks quite highly of some of the guys that are playing for big organizations and actually helping guys that are just starting out. I think that's quite a good thing that's happening in FIFA esports right now.
Great. And so I just want to give a bit of give a question that we give a bit of advice for the beginner player, like things that we are really focusing on at Valor Esports before they even actually reach the level where you can see them as potential. Do you have any advice for those players? Let's say I'm 13, 14 years old. I start playing FIFA. What are the main thing that I need to focus on if I want to be at the point where I could join SAF as an organization?
Yeah, I think it's important to try and get into competitions, put yourself into a competitive situation. So, there's a lot of platforms out there that allow you to enter competitions and tournaments. You might have tournaments at school or college or university. I think it's playing online weekend league or game modes where you're just kind of connecting to random people. It's going to be quite random in the sense that you don't know the skill level of the player that you're going to match. Whereas if you put yourself into a competitive kind of world and you're playing guys that are potentially better than you, if you get beat by that guy, then it's important to look at why. And I think one of the tips that we always say to our guys is, if you've got the ability to, get yourself the ability to record your games, so that then if you get beat, you can go back and look over if you moved the defender out of place or your pass wasn't quite right. You can then go back and analyze your game. So you could get a capture card, a cheat capture card, and just start recording your games. And the ones where you lose, you need to go back and look at why. See if you can fix that.
It's really interesting. It sounds like SAF has really aligned itself. I know it's a cliche to say esports and traditional sports, but I'm listening to these kind of conversations, you can hear the game theory that exists, that you've really developed your approach. I mean, it's almost like, businesses strive so hard to have that input of, you've even realized, and I'm not maybe, and do you think is this something that's natural between all the kind of the leaders at SAF, or is it just something you think you've got from your background in rugby, in rugby league, that this understanding that, okay, well, we've got a lot of talented young players here, but we actually need some experience, even if they're not as good talent-wise currently. I mean, this is something I've been whinging about my own team, Brisbane Broncos, for the last 2 years, is they need leadership. I'm hearing that as well from yourself, that there's a real traditional sports approach to everything you guys do. Would you kind of, is that something you've meant to do, or is it just natural?
Well, I think it's born from learning. When we first got the esports team, I think that we had guys coming from other teams, And one of the first things we did is ask them what they liked about that team and what they didn't like about that team. And we kind of drew a little bit from those guys' feedback and experience. And, we said to these guys, what type of org do you want? And what we heard a lot was we want somebody that can, leaders and who can almost mentor us, but we also want to feel part of a team. And one sort of clear message that we got through quite often was that it was almost like Formula One, where these two guys are walking out for the same team. Deep down, these guys can't stand each other and they want to beat them to the podium and beat them to pole position. And I think esports, from some of the feedback that we've had, a lot of teams just have two players. They're often vying for a spot. And, if one guy's performance drops off, he might get replaced. So it can be quite competitive in that way. So we've got a bigger team. We've got, I think, 9 players now. And that really allows us to bring in lots of different personalities. We have leaders, we have the jokers in the team that everybody needs. We have the guys that are quite serious. And between the whole team, they fit into, I guess, what a traditional sports coach would look for. It's almost like a jigsaw, trying to find the right people to fit into that sort of team ethos. So yeah, it's we have approached it. I think some of the things we've had to learn along the way, but we've tried to look at the feedback from players and emulate, traditional sports in that way, which is it's cool.
I think it's really inspirational. That's something that we've developed our whole concept of, which is traditional sports model to teach beginner gamers that you need consistency, you need a structure and an approach that might not work. It works for 90% of the populations, that you can get everyone progressing a lot faster. What I wanted to, I'm also listening to talk about SAF, and you allude to these multi-million-dollar organizations being, I guess, at a different level to you guys currently. Where does SAF really see itself in the next 3 to 5 years, and where are you guys kind of really targeting to push the company to?
Yeah, it's interesting. We still feel that we have some headroom in the FIFA market, even within the UK. We still have, we're probably now, in the top 2 or 3 organizations in terms of followers size, in terms of FIFA teams within the UK. In Europe, we're probably getting close to maybe the top 20. So we still want to kind of solidify our position within FIFA esports and FIFA gaming and the FIFA community and grow that. Longer term, we would probably look at other games. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with the prize money in FIFA, but it's nothing compared to some of the other games like Call of Duty, League of Legends. These guys are millionaires who, if you come second in a tournament, you could probably set up your own esports org if you needed to in some games. So I think for us, we want to potentially, the branding now is SAF Global Gaming. So we will look into other games, probably look at other football games. And one of our partners, First 11, which is the entertainment platform, these guys are going to have a lot of content creators in Brazil. So we're hoping that we can bring some of these guys. I think it's difficult to get a more passionate country than Brazil, probably, in terms of football. So the hope is that by working with these guys and having the ability to connect with that market, that will help grow us a little bit more internationally as well. I'd say it's a short term, be the number 1 in UK and Europe. Middle term would be growing into different countries within FIFA, and long term would be other games, and basically taking the model that we've got and putting that into another game if possible, and starting from the ground up in a sustainable way as well.
That sounds really exciting. And in terms of your role as a branding partnerships manager, what is that? What is your piece of the puzzle? What is, if someone's who wants to be in this world, working as a marketer or a brander, listening to that potential strategy and where you guys want to go, what will you be doing, and how do you kind of help the team get there as well?
Yeah. So for me, speaking to brands, they're already brands that are in gaming. They understand the space, and they're maybe looking to extend what they do in other games into FIFA. But there's a lot of brands that that have never come into this space, and they're maybe quite nervous. They're quite tentative. They don't understand the space. So when I speak to some partnerships managers from traditional brands that are maybe non-endemic in terms of gaming, we have to kind of spend some time with these guys, almost educating them into, why the analytics are different, how we create a fan base, how our community can interact with our content creators and pro team. So I think that's kind of the value added thing that probably myself and a lot of either organization owners or other partnership managers that are working in esports right now, it's a case of trying to help these guys understand the potential, but also understand how big it is right now. When I speak to brand partnership managers from brands, they would never think that we have a bigger social media following than a Premier League football club. But we do. These guys are a different demographic to traditional football teams. They're maybe younger, they're more tech savvy. So it's really an education piece sometimes with helping brands understand the space. But I think esports still got a lot to learn. I think there's still way to go until everything lands properly. But it's a very exciting and rapidly growing space to be part of.
Yeah, it's really cool. I didn't even think about that. The fact that you probably would have a stronger following than a lot of sports, older sport brands. You definitely have a lot more than Australian football clubs, which is pretty funny. When people, obviously who coming from the outside in, a lot of people still look at esports and they're unaware of the enormous economic growth that's happening inside it. So it's quite funny to think that you guys have actually already toppled some of these other organizations.
Yeah,
we've talked about community and how important that is, and also in terms of creating your own opportunities for your career, you need to build a network and build relationships with people in the community. Is there anything else you would recommend to someone similar to yourself? They've got a corporate background in branding and marketing, sales, and they really are starting to take an interest in esports. Is there anything else that you'd recommend? I was even going to ask, do you think, education for esports around branding and marketing is essential, or is it something that you can develop on your own terms?
I think, I think the lucky thing now for people that are looking to get into this space is that there are qualifications becoming available at colleges and universities. I think there's still kind of a little bit of a cloud around gaming and esports, that it's leads to a sedentary lifestyle, and it's kind of still got that sort of stigma attached to it. But I think what's really positive is that there are people, certainly in the UK, that are really pushing that into the education system to say, to people's parents that, there is a career in esports, and it doesn't have to be sat in front of a computer 24 hours a day, eating chocolate and drinking energy drinks. This is a vibrant, growing space. Esports teams, so ourselves, we've partnered with Revolution Esports, and alongside these guys, we really help to kind of portray a healthy message to our guys. We want them to stay hydrated, to exercise. So I think that education piece is important for the education system to kind of move with the times a little bit. So there's definitely an opportunity for people to go the educational route. For me, I kind of did it a slightly different way. And for me, it was a case of, okay, I had my 9-to-5 job, like everybody else. Normally, you click off at 5 o'clock and, you head to the TV or the Xbox. For me, it was, okay, now I start my second job, and that was, I've watched YouTube videos. I grew my LinkedIn profile quite quickly. Started listening to a lot of podcasts, a lot of educational things, but also just being involved in a brand and seeing what other people were doing in the space. I spent a lot of time, 16-hour days. Then I'd get a proposal request through that needed finishing the next day, and I've pulled a few all-nighters to get them done. So there's quite a few different routes in, and I think, if you're a young person, or if you are able to get into the educational side of it, I would definitely recommend it. But I'd also recommend trying to get some practical work experience whilst you're doing it as well, because that will put you in a much stronger position when you look to apply for permanent positions within esports and gaming.
I just want to say on behalf of Luke and myself that we're glad someone else is also working these massive 16-hour days. I think we've done, I think we often laugh about the 3 a.m. podcast to meet new people. So it's definitely the approach we're taking. So that question was for others, but also mainly for ourselves. So we wanted to know that we're on the right track.
Don't worry, guys, I'm with you. There's no such thing as 9 to 5.
And in terms of esports, you've started to talk about this growth from an education point of view. Where do you really see esports over the next 10 years? Is it going to adapt even more into the mainstream, or is it going to go in a different direction? What do you think's personally happening?
I think personally, I can only see it growing and moving into other areas. When you look at some of the massive gaming organisations that are doing collaborations with, coffee brands and fashion brands, sports teams, you've even got cross-pollination with things like Fortnite and Pele, the guy who's a legend in football. I think gaming will start to access more areas of people's lives and different parts. And I think the interesting thing is that a lot of people, when they think of gaming, it's literally somebody on an Xbox or a console, but there's a lot of mobile gamers out there as well, especially in Brazil, which is an area that we're looking to work in. More developing countries, these guys have mobiles. And when brands kind of start to realize that this thing is so huge, I think it will explode with a lot of big partnerships. And it's really exciting for me. I'm waiting for the day until there is kind of like an old school game show, but it's actually gaming, and everybody's watching somebody kind of play Fall Guys or FIFA at primetime TV, and that becomes the norm a little bit. I think entertainment and fashion and esports and gaming is kind of colliding at the moment, and what will come out of it could be quite exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I weirdly had a vision the other day. I don't know what I thought about it. You've kind of got your really serious interview shows, but I can imagine that happening while they're actually still gaming. So you can have be interviewing, a war veteran who did something amazing from my age group, but they're actually gaming as they have that discussion, because that's just that's the same as what you do with your mates. That you have some pretty serious conversations, but you're also trying to smash each other at FIFA. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, anybody that works in esports, they're probably bending the truth a little if they say that they've been on a call that didn't include videos and weren't secretly kind of grinding some sort of objectives in the background. I think everybody can hold their hands up to that at some point.
And I guess one of one of our favorite questions and something we do just before we sign off is, if you were an esports god and you had abundance of power to change the industry or maneuver the industry in any way, what would you do to make it even better?
Oh, that's a very good question. In my opinion, it would be to totally alleviate toxicity. Gaming is fun. it's supposed to be a break from politics and things that are going on in the world and people arguing about Brexit or the pandemic and world leaders. You know, if you're going to come into the gaming space, for me, you go in there to get away from this stuff. So let's all just be nice to each other and have a good time. So if I was a god, that is exactly what I would do, I think.
Yeah, it's actually, we need to make sure, put this on note, Luke, we need to go get all the footage of everyone who said that to us. So everyone wants it. And it's interesting that, you know, the business leaders of esports want to do it. So I think I'm hoping that passion and that energy of that does work towards that, which is really cool. Before we leave, how can people get in contact with you and also keep up to date with what SAF GG is doing?
Yeah, so we've got our Twitter handle is SAF_GG on Twitter, which is our esports Twitter handle. If you wanted to speak to me on LinkedIn, you know, it's Craig Winfield. And then, you can contact me and connect there. I'm always happy to network and help anybody that I can that wants to get into this space or already in the space and looking to collaborate.
Awesome. And any events coming up that we need to know about?
Yeah, so right now we have the E-Premier League. So we have one guy that has qualified for Aston Villa, which is cool. We also have another guy that has qualified for Chelsea. And we've also got 4 more guys. So hopefully Manchester United, Liverpool, now I need to test my knowledge here, I think Brighton and Arsenal. So potentially, you know, if you want to look at, there we go, we've got an ask. So if you want to get into, you know, if you want to go check out competitive esports, you know, take a look at some of the Premier League clubs' Twitter pages. Some of these guys are really getting behind esports, and you know, you should be, or you can come to our Twitter page and you know, follow the guys' progress. And hopefully, at the end of the week, we'll have 4 or 5 guys representing Premier League teams in the E-Premier League, which would be awesome.
Yeah, incredible. Well, thank you so much for your time. I've really, really enjoyed this conversation and just really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, guys.